Hi, everyone. First of all, I would like to wish everyone out there a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Please remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already and like the videos and leave a comment below. That always helps if you enjoy my content. So my buddy Glenn Kellaway from the basement, a recent video of his was a musical journey in 10 songs. And I know my buddy Morris Gotro did a video on that, which was very good. But it's the same kind of idea, but I've changed it up a bit. And even though I might title it 10 songs, I've decided to do 12 songs. And my idea is kind of how I got into different genres of music. And so it's kind of basically the same idea. So this all starts from, I was born in 1958, so I remember, of course, music in the early 60s. And one of my first memories for music was, that's right, children's music. And I've really been struggling to remember what was the main song I loved in, the early 60s, when 61, 62. But definitely one of them was, "How much is that doggy in the window? Ruff, ruff." Thank you. Yeah, and there was Humpty Dumpty, "Sat on the Wall," that. But it kind of, I'm old now. I would have remembered what songs, 20 years ago, but now I kind of struggle with some of the other children's songs. But yeah, remember the little 45 RPMs? They were, I think, colored discs sometimes. And so, yeah, that's how I started loving music. And then, of course, you know what's up next. Yeah. Now, I'm not sure what was the very first Beatles song I heard, but I know my older sister Sharon, I should actually ask her if she remembers. What was the first Beatles 45 that she bought? But one of them was definitely "I Want to Hold Your Hand." And I also remember "If I Fell," "Twist and Shout," in 45. And I'm not sure, I think we must have heard the music before seeing them on the Ed Sullivan Show. But yeah, just great memories of that the Capitol logo, the swirl and everything. And definitely that was my first taste of rock music. And I still love it today. And I also need to credit the Beatles, because the Beatles were the biggest influence on me for music, because they did so many different genres in a short, pretty short span of years. Everything from, blues rock, experimental music, acoustic. Yeah, just so many genres, you can't even list them all. Next up, now my dad used to have, my dad was a country music fan. And when I got bored with the few albums I had or my brothers had, I would go into his album collection and I would listen to some of the country music. And I wouldn't like, some of it didn't interest me at all. But then, for instance, yeah, my dad had this album, "I've Been Everywhere." The only song I think that I really loved on the album was "I've Been Every," because it was fast and lots of energy in it. But I also loved, Roger Miller, "King of the Road," Tex Ritter with Hillbilly Heaven. Of course, he's John Ritter's dad, who was in Three's Company, Johnny Cash. And so, yeah, I like a lot of old country music. So that was, about 1965 or so, started enjoying some country music. And then, yeah, uh, psychedelic rock. I think this was probably, I never really, my older brothers never bought Grateful Dead records or anything, so I never really got into them, but I definitely loved Jefferson Airplane's Volunteers album, and I still play it a lot today. And so that's psychedelic rock, which of course the Beatles did too, with, It's All Too Much and a few other songs. Then the next genre I got into was blues or blues rock. And once again, an album, one of my all-time favorite albums. Canned Heat, I have all of their early albums. And this is probably my favorite though, Hallelujah. I bought it in a cutout bin for probably $1 or two. And yeah, so I started to appreciate blues. Then let's get into some soul music. Of course, there was James Brown that the songs I heard by him I liked. I Feel Good and other songs like that. But the main one for me was Sly and the Family Stone and this album, Greatest Hits. I think this is one of the greatest, single greatest hits compilations. Just so many great songs. Everyday people dance to the music. You can make it if you try. Sing a simple song, My Lady, Life. Thank you for letting me be myself again. Goes on and on. Every song is just excellent. So I was into some soul music, man. And then hard rock. It might have been, and once again, the Beatles. The Beatles did hard rock with, Revolution and Hey Bulldog and Helter Skelter. But Grand Funk, and it might have been the Red album, their second that I heard first. I'm not sure. But this was the very first Grand Funk album that I owned. That was mine. And I just remember listening to the whole album on headphones. It was when headphones were first getting popular, at least in my household. And Into the Sun, the final song, is my favorite on the album, but it's my favorite live album. Progressive rock. And yeah, the first album I really truly got into and appreciated was Genesis with Nursery Cry. And then, so that was 1972. I know the album came out in 1971, but it's in, I think, 1972 when I first heard the album. And then electronic music or electronic rock music. And 1974 with Kraftwerk, Autobahn, and of course Radioactivity is another one of my favorites. Their later albums, I have Computer World, is it? I don't know. Maybe I need to listen to them more, but I love Autobahn and Radioactivity. So that was my gateway into electronic rock music. And then I got into jazz or jazz rock, but even just straight jazz, even though I don't have much, except for, I think, Miles Davis. Jazz rock. This is what got me to appreciate it, was this album by Frank Zappa, Hot Rat. It's mainly instrumental, except for one song with Captain Beefheart on vocals. And, it took 2 or 3 listens to appreciate, and then I became I was already a fan of Frank Zappa. So I'm not sure when I heard this, because I became a fan of Frank Zappa in 1975, but it must have been sometime in the mid-70s when I bought this album and loved it. And of course, the Grand Wazoo, too. And Wacka Jawacka. And then singer-songwriter. That's kind of, yeah, I guess it's a genre, because this is quite different than what I was listening to and I got into. You know, there was Neil Young, but I think this album is the one where, you know, a solo artist, you know, not a great singer, kind of like some people think Neil Young isn't a great singer. But I love his vocals, Randy Newman. And I have all of his early albums, and great songwriter. And of course, the Eagles did background vocals and played on this album too. And it contains the song Short People, which, you know, I'm a tall person, 6'3". But even if I was 4'3", I would get the humor of the song. He's not really putting down short people. He's mocking the stupidity of people judging other people for being whatever, short, tall, fat, slim. So, but some short people took offense to it. Short people have no reason to live. But Randy Newman wasn't being that serious about it. And finally, experimental rock. Also in the mid-70s. Yeah. You can tell by the cover. It's going to be a weird album. And some of his other albums weren't quite as experimental. They were almost normal, some of them, almost. But this one was definitely one that took a few listens to appreciate. And I grew to love the album. It's not my favorite of Captain Beefheart's, but it's a great album. And that is it. Just, 12 different... And there's even... Yeah, I don't want to say too much more because it's for my other channel, but there's even other genres I'm starting to appreciate. So that's it. Let me know, what are some of your favorite genres in music, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Bye.